Can you see me? Okay.
I can see you. Shake my hand.
Acabo d'agafar aquest micròfon perquè si no, no em sent. Do you hear me now, Nonny?
Mucho gusto, eh?
Nice to meet you. Molt de gust.
Yes. Hello from Los Angeles, California.
Welcome to Barcelona. Benvinguda a Barcelona. Okay.
Thank you so much.
I'll explain a little bit how this works and then I'll come back to you. Okay, Nonny?
Okay, no problem.
Okay. I és la Nonny de la Peña, la periodista freelance, que tenim exactament allà a Los Angeles. Ja veieu que porta aquest vestit, porta aquest casc. I don't know, Nonny, if I could ask you to raise your arms. A veure si pot aixecar els braços. Ja veieu que els aixeca. Keep them up, because now we'll show the robot. I ara anirem a veure el robot, que ja veieu. Can you move them a little bit more? A veure si els pot moure una mica més. Up and down. Doncs ja veieu que el robot reacciona perfectament amb la Nonny. Nonny, I'm ready to interview you now for a few minutes. Li farem una entrevista a la Nonny per veure què li ha semblat aquesta experiència. You're a journalist, ella és una periodista, i fa una estona ha entrevistat un científic de Barcelona. You just interviewed a researcher from Barcelona, but in a body of a robot. What was that experience like?
So for me, it starts to feel very natural after a while. Occasionally, there's some problems with the eye movement of my head if I move too fast. But beyond that, very quickly, I'm there in Barcelona with you.
Okay, in fact, you're touching me.
My body's here,
Okay.
and I feel like I'm there in the room with you doing the interview.
Wearing virtual reality goggles and a motion capture suit, I was able to be in Barcelona and Los Angeles at the same time. I can't do that today since I don't have access to the robot. Instead, I must still rely on traditional methods of film and slides to present my work, something I call immersive journalism. The basic concept behind immersive journalism is to give people a first-person experience of the news, to make them feel that they're actually on the ground while the story unfolds. The sense of presence that comes with the VR technologies when you put people in the middle of the story can be extremely powerful, and it actually gives them access to the sights, sounds, and feelings that often accompany news stories. In fact, journalists have always tried to put people on the ground, to have them have a sense that they're there when the story unfolds. Martha Gellhorn, who was a reporter during World War II, called it The View from the Ground, and Walter Cronkite actually made a series of films that he called You Were There.
The Mexican province of Texas is not a part of the United States, although it has been populated by a steady stream of Americans. These Texians, as they are called, are Mexican citizens. Their province is part of the Mexican nation, but their difficulties with the central government have steadily increased. Now there is open rebellion.
March 5th, 1836. The siege of the Alamo. You are there.
Of course, trying to command you to be there wouldn't work anymore, although I guess in Cronkite's time this was a very successful series. More recently, several documentary games have dealt with serious news topics. JFK Reloaded tried to deal with the many conspiracy theories by allowing players to shoot the president from the book depository. Once someone made the shot, the makers took the game down as if to prove Oswald could kill the president from that angle. When John Kerry was running for president against George Bush, a controversy erupted over whether Kerry deserved his medal for his bravery in Vietnam. Kuma Wars let players try to reenact Kerry's feats as a way to let the audience investigate the story. Perhaps one of the most controversial was 9/11 Survivor. After hacking a game engine and stripping out weapons and points, the developers just let players become a victim. One of the creators told me this was how he dealt with seeing people jump from the buildings. The other developer said, "The game is not really a game at all. It keeps no score or actual track of time. It's merely a moment caught in time." Isn't that what journalism always tries to do? Informing what I've been doing has been a lot of research indicating that people really connect to their virtual selves. For example, in this particular study, this guy is actually seeing himself through that video camera from behind. So he sees his body as if he is sitting behind his body. And when they brought down a hammer in front of the camera, he jumped. So he actually felt like his body was where the camera position was rather than where he was actually seated. This type of connection has been repeated in multiple kinds of studies. People have been given fake arms, for example. There's just been a ton of work of understanding that in some ways what we see becomes what we are. One of the first projects I built was a virtual Guantanamo Bay prison. With funding from the MacArthur Foundation and support from the Bay Area Video Coalition, I was able to take a documentary I'd made, Unconstitutional, and reconstruct it in the virtual world.
What happens behind these barbed wires? The little information that comes out of Guantanamo Bay through former prisoners, their lawyers, or the occasional NGO is remarkably consistent. They all report similar horrors. Beatings, electric shock, people chained to walls, floors, their heads plunged into ice-cold water.
Dogs barking at naked prisoners while loud music is being fired into their ears. People are being taunted with pictures of their children, saying that you're never going to see them again. The screams of women are being used to break detainees' wills.
The man speaking here is British national Muazzam Beg. He spent almost 3 years in the infamous prison before he was released in 2005. In her 2004 documentary Unconstitutional, writer-director Nonny de la Peña used footage of Muazzam's father reading his son's letters from Guantanamo.
I've been kept like an animal in a cage. They don't give me food. There is no one to help me.
Under the Second Life name Nonny Rider, De La Peña is behind the Gone Gitmo project, situated on a rooftop on IML Island. The sim is run by the Interactive Media Division at USC School of Cinematic Arts. Nonny is convinced that the issues surrounding Guantanamo can be brought much closer to home via Second Life.
There's a sense of the reality to it. So when your avatar goes into a cage, it's a very visceral feeling, beyond watching it in a film, beyond reading about it in the paper. Geography doesn't matter.
With a grant from the Bay Area Video Coalition, Nonny and USC visiting Professor Peggy Weil used famous builder Bubaka Fairchild to create interactive Guantanamo.
Guantanamo is physically off limits to most citizens and press. Keep a topic out of sight and it stays out of mind. So in the face of a real but inaccessible destination, we felt that Second Life offered us a chance to build an accessible, albeit virtual, version.
De La Peña and Weil also realized they would have to deal carefully with the implications of depicting questionable interrogation practices.
We do not torture your avatar. So rather than a torture chamber, we elected to build a contemplation chamber, a series of spaces to contemplate the reports of practices going on in Guantanamo, as well as the current news via RSS feed.
As soon as I had put on my orange jumpsuit, I was thrown into the back of a C-17 transport plane and...
You're immediately bound, and then a black hood comes over the vision of your avatar.
Shut up!
Oh. We then integrated some sounds that were based on descriptions of what real detainees heard. When the black hood is removed, you find that you're in a cage. Most of the footage is from original Defense Department shots of detainees in Guantanamo Bay.
A replica of Camp Delta will be added to this Camp X-Ray soon. Nonny wants it to include a habeas corpus game, enhancing the simulation of a place outside of the law.
Like a regular video game where you get your choices. What do you do now? Call your parents? Call your lawyer? Ask what you're in here for? And the answers are, no, you can't call your parents. No, you can't call your lawyer. Sorry, not allowed to give you that information.
Nonny de la Peña hopes her SL project reaches a responsive audience. On Constitution Day, residents used the bill to interact with faculty from Seton Hall Law School, which has been on the forefront of analyzing detainee records.
We were careful in our reconstruction to use well-documented source material. For example, this is a photograph that was smuggled out by a soldier, and this is what happens in our virtual Gone Gitmo. We also embedded video that was originally released by the Defense Department, but was soon retracted because of the outcry over the conditions in which detainees were kept. The video acts as a reminder that the prison is a real place and as an archive for footage not readily available anymore. We also began what we called embodied edits, that is, that we'd move people along the timeline using their avatar, using their embodied selves. And this is a really interesting challenge because in these virtual spaces, usually people have freedom. They get to direct themselves about where they go, so you don't have complete control of the linear narrative. Places like Second Life, they could actually fly around. From Gitmo, I moved on to making a piece about a detainee kept in a stress position for multiple hours. And this was the first time that I really understood the power and the impact of using virtual reality goggles to tell these kind of stories.
So we're going to put on this head-mounted display. If this is uncomfortable, tell me. Alright. So now I'm going to tighten it until you say it's comfortable. It's okay? More?
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, a little bit more. Okay.
Now look all the way down as if you're looking at your feet. bend your head really low. Look, turn it, yeah, really low. So now, can you grab your hands behind your back? And from now on, don't move your body, only your head. So close your eyes now, and then only open them when you start to hear some sounds. The situation is that you're alone here in a room. We're all going. We're just going to pull the curtain, and you may hear something coming from another room.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
And you're here against your will.
I might have been imitating his posture. I don't know, but I remember feeling uncomfortable.
I was, you know, all flexed and in a comfortable position. I felt mostly forward.
Participants claimed that they were hunched over in a stress position even though their body was sitting upright. This gives you an idea of how powerful this medium can be. The audio that you're hearing in the background are actors reading the interrogation logs that were released by Freedom of Information Act. It was altered slightly in that the passive voice became an active voice. For example, instead of Sergeant R makes the detainee stand up and sit down 3 times, it was read as sit down, stand up. However, other than that, nothing was changed. Everything that you hear is true to these logs. Does this immersive journalism experience raise questions about journalistic integrity because it's a subjective experience and I have editorial control? Well, I'm going to show you a video that came out after we made the piece, and I would have to say we were probably fairly ethical in what we did. Finally, I'm going to wrap up with my piece, Hunger in Los Angeles. The project began as part of a larger endeavor at the USC School of Journalism called Hunger in the Golden State, which investigated the overwhelming numbers of people without access to food. I started recording audio at food banks until we captured a day when a man went into a diabetic coma because the line was so long he didn't get food in time.
I'm sorry, you have to wait. You have to wait. And I'm slowing down because there are too many people in line. What's the next number? Okay. Why are you here? You shouldn't be standing here. You know you're blocking the... You should be in line where your number is. Please don't push. Okay, we're slowing down a little bit. There's too many people. There's too many people. Or somebody that's... Okay, he's having a seizure. Okay.
As you'll see, the man on the right, he's actually wearing the virtual reality goggles, and he's tracked as he was walking around. And he will very carefully make sure that he doesn't step on the victim. He will walk around him. For him, everything's life-size. It's happening in real time, and figures are all around him. So for him, this is extraordinarily real.
Oh, it's the street. It's the church, Unitarian Church. Yeah, at the right side. Kung may kasama na, may kasama. O na ano. What did you say?
What happened?
Sipet. Maybe her sugar went down.
The piece premiered at the Sundance Film Festival, and the impact was tremendous. So what'd you think? Oh, you're crying. You're crying. Sheila, you're crying. Now I return to the robot and ask you to imagine being able to travel to the moon, walk underwater, or embed in another culture in order to prevent an escalation to war. Yet there are ethical implications too. If I appeared as a child, would children trust me more readily? Clearly, immersive journalism and the future of embodiment is complex. But I believe if we are aware of the challenges and seek out best practices, immersive journalism and embodied experience will be part of our bold future. Thank you.